Hi there everyone, it's Cassie. Welcome back for another Missing Stamps video. Today we're going to be playing with a new release. It's going to be re-released on the 27th. This stamp set is called Stuck Duck, and I love this stamp. I have loved this for so long. It's so cute. I love all the snarky stamps that Missing Stamps has, and this one is just one of my favorites by far. Some of those sentiments: life status, currently holding it all together with duct tape, best friends give you duct tape, rope, and a shovel, and don't ask questions. And they go on and on. We're also going to be using this Artsy Abstracts stencil. It's actually 4 stencils, so it's got a lot of options, and then it does have quite a few masks to go along with it. So if you do something with the stencil, you can mask it with the stencil piece. I'm going to bring in some various distress products. We also have some mixed media paper because we're going to have fun making a background. We've got some double-sided adhesive because we're going to make some faux duct tape as well, along with some gilding flakes. So let's go ahead and jump into our background. I did cut down my mixed media paper. It is 4 inches by 6 inches, and we're going to keep that extra inch at the top, or 3/4 of an inch, and we're going to use that on the inside of our card. So we're going to go ahead and do this whole panel. I'm using a combination of Distress Oxide sprays along with some Distress sprays. And the Distress Oxides are going to give a little bit more of a chalky look, where the Distress sprays are going to give a little bit more solid look. I don't know if I'm making sense. You'll see what I'm talking about. That first color that I sprayed down was some Distress Oxide and Blueprint Sketch. We also have some Speckled Egg. This color is Villainous Potion, and that one is a Distress Spray Stain. We're not going to bring in the other Distress Spray Stain until a little bit later, but we are going to build up this background. If you are new to making backgrounds like this, it's super fun, and the results are always a little bit different. So I'm going to heat set this in between each layer, and then we're going to spray that with some water because there's still plenty of good color down on there. But look at that. I love how that looks. It's looking really purpley right now. It's going to dry back a little bit because that purple mixed with that oxide just kind of gives it a little bit more of a subdued look. But like I said, we're going to work in several layers. I'm going to clean up the mess that's already on that Teflon sheet, and then we'll spray down some more color. Now we're going to bring in that iced spruce, which is more of like a green gray, mostly gray. Then we'll bring in a little bit more of that speckled egg, and then we're going to put after we heat set this, put this, like, pounce our paper right into it. Now, the reason I chose the mixed media paper is because it is really good at handling water, because here I am going to sprinkle quite a bit of water on top of that, and really good just working with wet mediums. It holds up super well. You could use some watercolor paper. The results you are going to get are going to be different depending on the type of paper that you use. You wouldn't want to use a regular cardstock. That is not going to hold up. But any sort of mixed media paper or watercolor paper, just play around with what you might have. This mixed media paper from scrapbook.com is definitely one of my favorites. All right, more water, more color, and heat setting in between, kind of letting that water sit on there for a few seconds. Spraying water on my Teflon sheet because I am going to put it back in there and pick up more of that color. Trying to focus kind of on those edges because I still have a few little white spots on this paper, and I want this to be completely covered. So we're almost there. We'll heat set again, and now I'm going to bring in that Blueprint Sketch, but I'm just going to take the cap off, and I just want splatters of that on my background. And it doesn't look like a whole lot right now, but I do love how, I love those dots on there. I'm kind of wishing I had done some of the Villainous Potion also, but I'm really happy with this background. It turned out super fun. I'm going to bring in that Artsy Abstracts, and then I have a paper towel. A baby wipe would work also, but I have a paper towel I'm spritzing with some water, and you're really going to want to scrub. I had to go back over this a couple times because I didn't scrub hard enough the first time, and it's still pretty subtle because, I did work in quite a few layers, but by wiping that color away, like really rubbing that color away, you'll get the impression of whatever your stencil looks like. And you can't really tell here right now. By the end, it's pretty subtle, but I do a little bit more, and I'm really just kind of scraping that watered down paper towel over the top of that just to try and really get some of that color to come back out. I'll show you what it looks like in the end after I heat set it. It's super subtle, but there are some lines there. You can see it much more in person. And now I'm going to bring in some paste. This is the Crypt grit paste. And I just highly suggest you use your pastes. Use your things. Don't let them sit there. This isn't dried out by any means, but I get the impression that if I let this sit here too long, it will dry out. So I'm going to try and find other places to use this grit paste because I don't want it to dry out. I hate when that happens. And it is a pretty thick paste, so I think if I don't use it this season, it'll definitely be dry by next season. So we're going to find other places to use it. But I put it through that Artsy Abstract stencil. We'll pull that away. And I did do it fairly thick. So we're going to set that off to the side to dry. We'll pick up some of that color underneath because those distress oxides and distress sprays do pick up the colors. They like to morph into whatever's on them. But let's go ahead and stamp our images. So that duck, I have to do the duck. And then one of the rolls of duct tape, and then a couple of the different sentiments. We're going to stamp all of those out. This is some Express It cardstock. It is a cardstock that's really good for alcohol marker coloring, and it's just a really white, crisp white kind of paper. And I'm inking this up using some Simon Hurley Create Black Widow ink. I have recently been using this with my alcohol markers. It does a really good job. It dries quickly. It's nice and dark black. And as you see, I had a little bit of a mishap there with my marker. That happens quite a bit. But I'm going to work with it because I don't want to restamp this. But these Olos, these alcohol markers have a tendency to be very, very juicy. Quite the opposite of some other alcohol markers that are out there that might be a little more dry. These ones definitely are not. You just have to pay attention to the tip of your marker. And, you know, if you see that it's getting kind of extra juicy or it's really getting damp looking, that's why I keep that microfiber cloth there. I can just kind of dab that up. But I never have a problem with my markers, or these ones in particular, being dry. I just have a good problem of them being extra juicy. So love that. For the duck itself, I used some warm grays. We're using cool gray for the actual duct tape. And I used W3 and W1 for the duck. We'll use C3, C5. And then for the inside of the duct tape roll, we're going to use W5 and W7 because it's a darker, warmer color. I do love how different the warm grays look from the cool grays, that's for sure. Because they are pretty different. And then we'll add a little bit more shadowing and shading to our roll here and then blend that out. And then bring in those colors for the inside of the roll. So that's that WG5. And then our WG7 will be the darker part. And then we'll finally bring in some color for his beak and his feet. We're going to use some Y0 2.3, Y0 2.5, and Y0 2.7 for a little bit more drama to that color. And I won't blend any of that out. But he's looking good. And the next step would be to cut these out. So I'm going to fussy cut. I don't have the dies. So I'm going to fussy cut these out. And like I said, this stamp set is being re-released on the 27th. So be sure to come back. This is a fan favorite. And people have asked for it to come back. And so it is. I'm so happy she's restocking this one in the store because it is absolutely one of my favorites. It just makes me so stinking happy. And the sentiments in there are too fun. And I chose the Just Roll With It. That's going to go on the inside. I'm trimming that down with my guillotine trimmer. And the other one, Life Status, currently holding it together with duct tape. That seems to be me about every other week. I did heat set my grit paste. And then now what you see me doing is just using a little bit of the Distress Micro Glaze. And all that does is it kind of sets the color. It does have a little bit of a, maybe an oily feel to it, but I'm going to rub this on with my finger. You could also do it with like a distress sponge. And then I'm going to rub the excess off with my microfiber cloth because you can see there's a little bit of shiny to it. It does darken the color, but if I wanted to do anything else to this background, which I should have done this before, I guess, it won't make that color move around. It won't make the color won't be any more reactive. So here we go. We're cutting our panel down to 5 1/4, and it was already 4 inches on the long sides, or short side, or however. It's now 5 1/4 by 4 inches, and then I have that extra piece that'll go on the inside. I'm roughing up those edges using a distressing tool. I've had this distressing tool for well over 20 years. I think there's other ones out there. I can link one down below. This one definitely not available anymore, but it works the same, so I use it. And just distressing up the edges is just a fun thing to do. And especially if I'm going to bring in some faux duct tape, which is what we're doing here. So I'm taking some double-sided adhesive. This stuff is about 3/4 of an inch in width. And I kind of made a jagged cut at the top and then made it straight at the bottom. And we're putting this onto some white cardstock. And I'm going to do another piece just smaller. I wish I'd have done one more to put on the inside of the card, but I just did 2. And then we'll peel off that release paper for those. And we're going to bring in those gilding flakes that are silver. Don't have your fan on. These things fly everywhere. I don't have my fan on this time, thankfully, but I've done that in the past. And all you're going to do is pick up these gilding flakes and you're going to burnish them into your double-sided adhesive. And it sticks really well. And it gives this really cool look. It's super shiny, and any of the excess that I'm going to have that I rub away, I'll use on the other piece. And it's a quick, fun process. I mean, I suppose it's a little bit messy. I had a few of these that I wasn't able to grab, some of the flyaways. But for the most part, I grabbed anything extra and I put it right back into my container. I'm going to have this container of flakes for a long, long time. So there you go. Look at how cool those look. So we'll clean up our mess, and then we are going to trim down our little faux duct tape pieces just using some scissors. Super simple to do. And then we can adhere these down onto our card wherever we want. And I'm going to use liquid glue because I did use that Distress Micro Glaze. Not that things won't stick to it, but I just want to make sure that things stick to it and they don't fall off later. So we'll start working on our panel. I'm going to use that liquid glue, put this smaller piece of duct tape down at the bottom, and our longer one at the top. And then we're going to use some foam tape on the back of our sentiment and also our duck. And again, don't want those to fall off because I'm also putting this over grit paste. I'm going to use some liquid glue on my foam tape. So yes, those are double-sided, but we're going to go ahead and use some liquid glue as well just to make sure everything stays exactly where it's supposed to. So once again, putting that on the foam tape. Then I'll grab my card base, which measured 5 1/2 inches by 8 1/2 inches, and I scored it at 4 1/4. So it's a side folding A2 size card. We'll put that excess piece on the inside using the liquid glue, our little roll of duct tape, and then our last sentiment that says just roll with it. Love it. And then we can use liquid glue to adhere down our panel to our base. Oh, I just love this card. Now I want to make them with different background colors because I just had so much fun doing this one. So if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button. Definitely consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. And yes, there is a new release coming out. This one gets released on the 27th, along with some other things. Be sure to check out all that Missing Stamps has going on over on their blog, Facebook page, and Instagram for more crafty inspiration. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you soon.